There was a wrongness to the street lamps that night, a kind of polite dishonesty in the way their light softened corners, instead of glaring into them. I had spent years learning how to stage tension for strangers, timed silences, the slow reveal of a shadow. But on my walk home, the usual rhythms of the city misaligned, like a musician playing slightly ahead of the conductor. The air smelled faintly of ozone and lemon rind. Every reflective surface seemed to hold an extra depth, a darkened pane where something watched with patient hands. At first, the signs were trivial and easily dismissed. A neighbor's cat sitting in the middle of the sidewalk as if planted there, its pupils too round and unblinking. A row of mailboxes opened in perfect sequence, their contents rearranged into neat, meaningless columns. A bicycle leaning at an angle that refused gravity's apology. My phone showed messages I hadn't sent, drafts of conversations I hadn't had. The radio hummed between stations with a tone that made my molars ache. People I passed hesitated for a beat, as though catching a thought that wasn't theirs, then went on as if nothing had been interrupted. Patterns gathered like dust on a windowsill, subtle, persistent, accumulating until they became texture. What had been detached curiosity hardened into something like dread. I began to run small experiments the way a stagehand tests a rig. An inked arrow on my doorframe, a bell tied to a footstool, a strip of tape across the threshold. I returned to find the arrow mirrored on the inside of a closed drawer. The bell whipped into impossible knots. The tape peeled into a jagged letter. I left a camera on the banister and came back to rolls of film that developed into landscapes from childhoods I had never lived. My sleep thinned into a lattice of dreams where geometry failed, rooms folded back on themselves, corridors emptied into sky, staircases climbed away from the building like helixes. I began to suspect that my audience had changed. No longer people asking for a shiver at a party, but a patient intelligence reviewing my attempts as if cataloging a specimen. It did not need to knock. When the confrontation came, it did so like a stagehand who refuses to bow. The street outside my building peeled open like a page, a slow, oily light leaking from between gutters and curbs, making shadows bleed upward. Shapes moved in that light without perspective, edges that belonged to two sizes at once. The sound they made was not sound but promise. Names of things that had not yet been named. Memory staggered. There were gaps where whole years should have been. The presence did not speak, it rearranged. I tried to document it. Photographs that turned into other lives, a recording that played my own voice from a life I'd never chosen. In the end, I did what storytellers always pretend will save them. I wrote it down, page after careful page, binding my terror in ink as if that could keep it contained. I burned the first stack of pages on the landing and walked into the morning as if that act had closed the script. The smoke tasted like someone else's memory.